Well, hello there, and welcome to the kitchen of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for November 22nd, the day of the Liberator. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the day of the Liberator. We have us an image of, I bet you can't guess it because it's pretty random. I guess it's one of the first instances of, the invention of the bicycle. If you imagine the gentleman on this side and the wheel, the single wheel kind of off to his right there. Day of the Liberator? I mean, who's to say? I guess there's a certain amount of freedom associated with a bicycle there. In any event, does that speak to your birthday? Who's to say? Maybe we can make some connotations as we get on with the read, but that being said, that's not altogether all too important. What is important, however, is it's November 22nd, and hence it's somebody's birthday today. That's right. Is it your birthday today? Well, if it is, I just want to say happy birthday. But if this finds you late, I don't know, perhaps a couple days, weeks, months, whatever the case may be, I'm sure you're a busy individual, not necessarily searching the internet for your birthday. But if that happens to be the case and finds you late, I hope you had a happy birthday. That being said, this is the DykASSt, a birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake around these here parts and roll some dice. That's right. But more importantly, I roll dice, not just to live up to the namesake, but for synchronicity. That's right. And I rolled a 4 and a 5 for a 9. Now, what is synchronicity? You're probably wondering. Well, it's just you getting out in the world and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. And you do that by drilling down on like a mutually agreed upon sign, if you like. Something that you can use as a waypost. It's you between you and the universe there. Show you it's with you on your path. Kind of line things up for you, if you like. So what better than some numbers on a dice? That's right. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. Hey, you can roll your own, but it makes a lot of sense to take your own pair of dice, regardless of whatever you do there. So you can set directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. But that being said, you get your numbers, you get your direction, you get your time limit, and you start going in that direction. Once you reach the end of that time limit, well, what do? Well, during all this time, you're just keeping your eyes open. You know, a lot of times we move through the world kind of set with a singular focus, go get some errands run or do whatever, and so we're blind to a lot of the things around us. That's right. And so a lot of times, somebody starts talking about a certain car. Well, hey, now you start seeing them all over the place, right? Well, you know what? You got these numbers in mind. Get out there and see whatever instances of those numbers pop up. You're keen to them. That's right. And when you see them, chase them down with some hunger, with some zeal. That's right. It's like a sign that the universe wants you to go after it. That's right. When you do, you never know what might happen. You might just start to see a theme start to show up. Maybe you start to see people on old-timey bicycles. You never know. You got to keep your mind sharp, keep your eyes open. And you know what? Start to happen? Just all sorts of craziness. You know what? Maybe you do see somebody on an old-timey bicycle. Take that as a sign. Roll your dice. Get a time value going and kind of chase after them there if you like. Maybe not like running after them, but just in the direction they're going. You never know. Maybe they'll put you down in front of a building that has your daily numbers in the address there. Your 4 and your 5 for a 9. And you know what? Maybe it's a store, then you just go up in there, see what they've got. Maybe it's something that you've been just aching to try and buy here in the past, who knows, maybe a year or something, and you haven't been able to find one. I'll give you an example. I went to a Goodwill outlet the other day, and I was just like, let's see what I can see. And you know what I found? I found an exact model of a toaster oven that I've had that's broken, and the relays were all seized up on it. Now, this toaster oven was particularly gross that I found at that place, but you know what? For $4, I can get the relays out of there and then toss the rest of it. Maybe even take the old wires and all the components out, and that'll be well worth more than the $7 I paid. That's right. Although it was 4 in particular. I've also found a paint easel I've been in the market for. Like I said, just get out there, see what the universe has lined up for you. You never know. You might just find something you've been looking for a long time. That being said, I think you get the idea of synchronicity. So get out there, see, taste, touch, and feel the magic. Expand your horizons. You know, at the very least, if you don't see anything line up, at least you're putting the effort out there to broaden your horizons. And at the very least, you're going to get some steps in. That's right. So in any event, let's get in on with your birthday read, shall we? Your month is November. Your day, the 22nd. Your sign is 29 degrees Scorpio to 1 degree Sagittarius of the Scorpio Sagittarius cusp, and your quality and element is mutable fire. And so I think that lands you directly on the first day of Sagittarius. That's right. But you're still within the Scorpio Sagittarius confines of the cusp there as far as periods are concerned. That being said, let's get on with it. November 22nd, the day of the Liberator. The dominant theme in the lives of November 22 people is liberation. Women born on this day are often vocal in demanding fair treatment and autonomy, and will overcome roadblocks to their self-development at all costs. And if they at some point lack sufficient courage or willpower, they may indeed feel frustrated for a time, but sooner or later their desire to be free finds its expression. Men born on this day also display a freedom of spirit, but upon securing an elevated position, must beware of turning into the very oppressors that they formerly opposed. November 22nd people exhibit a refreshing lack of anxiety over what others think of them, and they generally feel free to make their own rules in regard to lifestyle, fashion, as well as taste, and more importantly, follow the direction of their own moral compass where important matters are concerned. November 22 people not only take an interest in their own freedom, but also that of others. In family and social life, however, their challenge to authority or unfair restrictions can at times create friction. In all situations, whether it be at home, work, or social occasions, November 22 people should try and be more tactful and perhaps a bit less provocative. Indeed, their tendency to upset the apple cart can earn them the reputation of troublemaker and possibly compromise their influence in securing real change. And therefore they may at times have to hide their true intent and pursue their ends in more subtle means. Those November 22 people fortunate enough to realize their aspirations rarely rest on their laurels. Not only are they intent on securing their position, but on improving the lot of their associates and colleagues. Workers' rights, promotions, benefits, and educational opportunities are matters of concern to them. As parents, those born on this day show great interest in the welfare and development of their children, and sometimes excessively so. Some November 22 parents, betraying their own revolutionary beliefs, insist that their children adhere strictly to a specific ideology. Others encourage their children to be free thinkers and act on their own initiative. But due to practical considerations and the limitations of the environment, their approach nonetheless spawns discontent and rebellion. Therefore, despite their concern and attention, November 22 parents seem to run into trouble at home. And because of their need for challenge, successful November 22 people can grow dissatisfied with the unchanging demands of a position and come to feel locked into a given role. Often they long for the old days when they were fighting to secure their place as individuals. The key for them is to continue setting goals worthy of them rather than imbuing the past with a golden hue and neglecting the concerns of the present. Well, all right. How about that for a birthday breakdown? Pretty interesting. All right. Hey, I like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read. See if I can make some connections with things that have come previous or just things that I have in mind there. So a little bit of a commentary, if you like. Let's get into it. November 22nd, Day of the Liberator. Liberation is a dominant theme in your life. And for women, the reading claims that you're often vocal in demanding fair treatment and autonomy, and will overcome whatever gets between you and your self-development at all costs. All right. Men are said to have freedom of spirit, but likewise with other Scorpios that came before you, and in this period specifically, must beware of their ego developing into the point of hubris taking over and transforming them into the kinds of people, like it said in the reading there, that stand between them and their success, or stood rather, past we call it past tense. What else we got here? For an interesting juxtaposition of the sexes there. The comparison that they sometimes make, but which rarely varies so dramatically there. So that was pretty interesting. For similarities, however, the reading claims you have a refreshing lack of anxiety over what people may think of you. That's interesting. That doesn't happen too often now. What else do we have? You make your own lifestyle rules and you follow your own moral compass, which sounds as though it isn't a focus just on your own freedom, but also that of others. So that's commendable. But it also seems to line up with others in this period who find themselves in similar circumstances. So you're not alone, thankfully, in that regard. Justice, truth, and rebelliousness are trademark characteristics often mentioned of this particular little period here. But also, like others in this period, the reading claims that you create fiction and can be provocative and can be seen as a troublemaker, all right? A bit of a theme that, all things considered, could be a trait that helps you accomplish your goals, I would argue. That said, I've been predicting that the reading will probably advise some kind of diplomacy, because they've done that in the past quite a bit when certain traits like this pop up. However, they haven't directly mentioned that kind of advice. And I've been doing it the past few days, so we'll see if they directly mention it for you, if you break that trend. So I'll be interested to see that today. Outside of their recommending you hiding your true intent there. I mean, that's kind of the same thing, but I want to see if they say it directly. In any event, this troublemaker theme also seems to carry over into the home, it's said there. The reading examining parenting practices and how you might realize that responsibility, which is a rare thing. They do get into parenting on occasion, but not all that often. So they kind of rounded it out for you here in a lot of regards. But it's an interesting correlation all the same. And it concludes with a warning of your need for challenge, with advice to keep setting goals later in life once you've already accomplished kind of what you're going after. Even if you've secured your life's ambitions. That's how I wrote. So like I said, they did a really good job rounding out this particular breakdown, I would argue. All things being considered. A lot of different elements, the various sexes they examined, parenthood. They didn't necessarily get into childhood or siblings, but that one's real rare. So in any event, that's been your breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right. Those born on the 22nd of the month are ruled by the number 4, as 2 plus 2 equals 4, and by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you like to say it, which is both erratic and explosive. The added influence of Pluto and Jupiter, the rulers of Scorpio and Sagittarius, respectively, underline the powerfully rebellious tendencies of November 22 people, but also their authoritarianism and idealistic dogmatism. Those are some big words there. The number 4 also typically represents rebellion and idiosyncratic beliefs and a desire to change the rules. All particularly true for November 22 people. And since 22 is a double number, those born on the 22nd day of the month often evidence an interest in doubles of various kinds, to say twins, coincidence, and symmetry, for example. All right, there's your numbers and planets. What did I have to say? Let's dive back into the notes here. Got to turn the page, though, first. All right, what we got here? The number 4 in the planet Uranus, which is erratic and explosive in your case. Sometimes those traits vacillate back and forth. I got the same thing, erratic and explosive, which with the added influence of Pluto and Mars, which is a co-ruler of Scorpio, but they didn't mention that. And you're on the Scorpio-Sagittarius cusp, so you get a little bit of that influence, as well as Jupiter. You apparently get some rebellious traits, all right, which, as complicated as this rulership period is, it's the only period with 4 planets in the mix, as far as I've seen. You got off kind of easy if rebellious nature is all that's affected there. The past few days have had to deal with frustration, depression, and rebellious natures, and they're just being pulled in all these different directions, I think, which leads to the frustration. And I didn't mention that for you, but if you feel that, let's just say maybe that's the aspect, maybe that's going on in your life there. Those different gravitational pulls. Who's to say? It's kind of up to the greater minds than mine there. But I say Uranus, with its idiosyncratic attributes, you must get a bit of a boost with the other planets instead of being pulled in those various directions. What with Jupiter's drive to be the first and to come out on top, it further emboldens the idea of you being geared toward overcoming obstacles. I also read that Jupiter imposes a little bit of luck into those people's lives too. So who's to say? Maybe you get lucky on occasion. Depending upon how you want to define that. All right, man. That's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, your tarot card. One of the more eclectic of the metaphysical New Age ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. It's your birthday. We don't have to take it home and start dealing the cards out to predict our futures and make our decisions. You can. Why not? That's for fun. But in any event, all I'm trying to say is let's get into it. It's your birthday. The 22nd card of the major arcana is the Fool, who in several versions of the tarot is shown blithely stepping over the edge of a cliff. And in some interpretations, picture him as a foolish man who has given up his reason. Others, a highly spiritual being free of material considerations. Positive meanings include renouncing resistance and following instincts freely. Foolishness, impulsiveness, and annihilation are the negative aspects. And the highly evolved Fool has followed life's path, experienced its lessons, and become one with his or her own vision. All right, hey, what do I have to say about your tarot here? Your tarot card, the Fool, for a highly spiritualized individual, free of material considerations here, or material rather. Renouncing resistance and following instincts freely, but with impulse and annihilation as negatives. So maybe a little bit of the too freely with the instincts there, perhaps. It's a highly apt card, I would argue. It almost informs the breakdown in a lot of regards. I don't know about the spiritualized aspect. They didn't really dive too much into that with the breakdown. But if you associate that with idealism, I think I can see it in that case. But you renounce resistance, you fight for your freedom, and there was warnings of what hubris and impulse could lead to if you weren't mindful of as much. So, like I said, I think it informs your breakdown just a little bit. Sometimes if you were to interchange these out, they wouldn't really work. But who's to say, maybe they kind of figure out the breakdown based on the tarot a little bit. I don't know. Not an astrologist or whatever the term might be. I'm just reading it from the book. In any event, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, your health. November 22 people must be careful about arousing powerful opposition and making enemies. All right, their need to free themselves and other living things from constraint lends excitement to their youth, but may stale as years go by. A great challenge for them is to accept their old age gracefully, and with it the inevitable aches as well as pains. Only mild to moderate exercise is recommended for those born on this day, and all extreme efforts, surgical or otherwise, to hide advancing age are discouraged. Taking vitamins and homeopathic cures in moderation is suggested. All right. They had a little bit of a couple new entries in here on the health. What do I have to say here? Again, with warning of arousing antagonism and the correlation of effect and seeking freedom. The effects of seeking freedom, rather, which seems a bit misplaced here in the health. We got that from the breakdown, and it doesn't seem to relate to your health. But perhaps they felt limited insofar as what they could relate with the health. I don't know. Or maybe they saw that related some way to your health, maybe your psychological mindset. Who's to say? But mild to moderate exercise is recommended with discouragement for vanity surgery. And that's a new entry here. I haven't read that here just yet. But maybe you're ostensibly nostalgic to an extreme degree, at least for your youth, maybe. Vitamins and cures are discouraged. They kind of get into that a little bit. They haven't phrased it that way before. But again, that's just for you, it sounds like. No mention of diet to be had here, surprisingly, nor the psychological mindfulness to prevent physically manifested ailments that often get suggested to Scorpios. Like I said, you're still in that cusp period, so perhaps that stuff still applies. Those folks they have the negative thoughts and it's the stress, and it can manifest as physical ailments. So they often would drill down on that instead of diet or exercise a lot of times. But in any event, they didn't really mention that for you, so perhaps it doesn't apply. But hey, you know what? Something to be mindful of. I'd say that's a good practice there. But perhaps we've largely left a lot of those concerns behind, despite you still belonging in the cusp. In any event, like I said, I thought I'd mention it, something to be mindful of, even though it might not apply. But in any event, that's been your health, so don't dive in with the cosmetic surgery, though I would be surprised if they did recommend cosmetic surgery for somebody. Like what made that decision? In any event, that's been your health, so let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Learn to work quietly behind the scenes to achieve your ends. And as a parent, avoid placing heavy expectations on your children. And tend to your own personal problems and self-growth. And believe it or not, the world can get along without you for a while. All right, here's your advice. What I have to say about it. Let's see here. Work behind the scenes, all right? Perhaps forcibly prevent yourself from arousing antagonism, right? A self-imposed restriction, if you like. Avoid heavy expectations on your children. They deserve their own lives and discoveries, right? I don't know. I don't want to dictate somebody else's parenting practices. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of a tall order, Like, I'll do what I want with my kids, right? I'm not going to be told. But hey, you know what? It's just something to be mindful of, I suppose. Tend to your own business. The world gets along fine without you for a while. I'd say people have to do things for themselves eventually also, right? Helping and doing things are completely different matters, right? Helping and doing are different. So, it's kind of that teach a man to fish and all kind of thing, right? So I would say things could get along without you just fine. But I think it does kind of lend to the idea where your priorities are, right? You want to get in there and get your hands dirty, and sometimes you got to step back, even though it's like, I want to get in there and help. So they're just advising maybe you let folks go their own way a little bit, I think. But you know what? That's my interpretation. So in any event, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. All right, let's get in it. Oh, and like I forgot to mention, they didn't expressly mention diplomacy. I thought they might. So we're carrying on with the theme here. In a place where they could, they haven't. So in any event, your meditation. Birds caged too long may not wish to fly when released. Oh, very interesting. Ooh. Once again, birds caged too long may not wish to fly when released. All right, hey, that's your meditation. It's your birthday. I'm going to leave that there for you. No spin on it, no interpretation. That's just for you. That being said, I think it lines up very nicely with some of the things we mentioned not too long ago, as turned out. Okay, I'll stop talking because that's influencing things. But in any event, that's been your meditation. So let's move on with some strengths and weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up that objective mirror and see where we're strong, where we're weak. Your strengths: you're freedom-loving, you're exciting, and you're tireless. Oh, those are some good ones. That's right. Tireless. You're going to get things accomplished. That's right. But your weaknesses, let's hold up that objective mirror, but spin it around to the part that blows your face up, shows off all them pock marks from when you had chicken pox as a kid. That's right, the blemishes. All right, your weaknesses: you're repressive, you're troubled, and you're overly protective. Oh, troubled keeps popping up in this period. So you're still in there with the Scorpios there. There's, you know what? I've never seen one repeated so often, and troubled gets popped up quite a bit in this period. So that being said, you're tireless, you're freedom-loving, and you're exciting. I would argue those are all things you can use to overcome your weaknesses. That's right. You can overcome them. You just got to be tireless in the effort. That's right. And sometimes it's hearing our weaknesses that gets us there. Oh, you know what? I never thought of it like that. I hadn't heard it before. Or at least it's phrased in a way that didn't really keen me to the idea. Like I said, hey, you never know. Got to be objective about things. That's right. That being said, your strengths and weaknesses haven't been correlated, if you like, let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do besides see who shares your company is ask the question, how do we chase our passions? That's right, I like to think about our passions, because all too often I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. A lot of times they don't. It doesn't line up with things that they want to do. And a lot of times you can't blame them because they don't know what they want to do. Their passions have eluded them. And I think it's completely understandable. A lot of times we don't have the time to put into work to figure those things out. We know things we like to do, things that pique our interest, but not necessarily how that translates into something that makes us money, if you like, or something we can do, get out of bed, doing backflips into the morning or into our day just to get after. And I think that's vitally important to make life feel fulfilling. So that being said, I think this is the perfect opportunity to see what other people did in their lives, to get their name in the book, get their stamp on the cultural zeitgeist, if you like. See what they did. I know it might not have been their passions, but you know, it got them in the book. And so maybe we can take some inspiration from that. But even if we can't, you know what, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear about it is going to help stir the fires. And if I can do anything for you on your birthday, it's that. So let's get after it here. Those born on this day. We have Charles de Gaulle, who was a French general, president, and a World War II symbol for the French resistance. We also have George Eliot, a British woman novelist, born Mary Ann Evans, and is responsible for Middlemarch. We have Billie Jean King, the U.S. World Tennis Champion, 6-time Wimbledon, 4-time U.S. Open winner, women's athletics activist. We also have Boris Becker, a German U.S. Open, Davis Cup, Australian Open champion, and the youngest Wimbledon winner. We also have André Gide, a French novelist and Nobel Prize-winning novelist of The Immoralist. We also have Hoagy Carmichael, a singer-songwriter and a pianist and a film personality. We also have Geraldine Page, a stage and film actress, rather. We also have Rodney Dangerfield, the comedian and film actor. Terry Gilliam was an animator and member of Monty Python, also a film director of The Fisher King. We also have Jamie Lee Curtis, the film actress. We have Sir Peter Hall, the British theatre, film, and opera director. We also have Thomas Cook, the British travel agency founder. Robert Vaughn, a film and TV actor. It says Han Solo in Man from U.N.C.L.E. I didn't know there was 2 of them. All right, here we go. We have Wiley Post, the aviator, it says. Or an aviator, rather. I think the aviator was Howard Hughes, technically. Oh, who's to say? Benjamin Britten, a British composer and a conductor. Gunther Schuller, a jazz composer and arranger, and a band leader, and a French hornist, and a critic. We also have John Field, a British ballet dancer, the Royal Ballet director. Wilhelm Friedemann Bach, a German composer, and the oldest son of Johann Sebastian. We also have Sripat Chandrasekhar, an Indian economist and responsible for hungry people and empty lands. And we also have Emmanuel Feuermann, who was a cellist. And I'm sure I mispronounced some of the names in there today, so let's do some butchering on my end. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't work for me with the names sometimes. Particularly the French and the Russian and the Greek and the Polish, all sorts of them. In any event, that essentially rounds out your birthday read with those born on this day being mentioned. I know, like I said, kind of a big-ass tall order to figure out your passions, but hopefully, if anything, it just helps stir up the fires for you. You know, maybe getting the bug in your ear about it. With that being said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read, except to say your season is fall, your sign once again is Sagittarius, and your period is the Scorpio Sagittarius Cusp, and your quality and elements is mutable fire. What does that mean? That's a different video altogether, but I'll leave it at the end card there for you. In a few moments here, you'll see it. With that being said, this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for November 22nd, the day of the Liberator. I don't know that we necessarily made any connotations with the gentleman on the big wheel, early bike prototype, but hey, you know what? Liberation, freedom. I would argue that's something the bike can provide for you. That's right. So maybe that's why they put it in there. That being said, this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers. Like I said earlier, I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy and diving in further with everything. And it supports the channel in the bargain, which I appreciate. With that being said, not altogether too important about the book there. What is important, like I said at the top, wishing you happy birthday. So I just want to once again say, happy birthday. That's right. And for everyone else who joined us, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourself and you join us for your birthday read. But lest I forget, that's right, your daily numbers. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. You're 4 and you're 5 for a 9. See, taste, touch, feel, and maybe even smell the magic. Who's to say? I think if you do, even in just a little part, you'll see why I recommended it. That's right. So in any event, once more, happy birthday and take care of yourselves.